Hey people, welcome back to the Slight Sarcasm Podcast. I'm Celeste.
I'm Amber.
And we're back with another episode.
Yes, we're doing so good on our schedule.
Yes, we are invested in this podcast, obviously. And I'm glad we're still doing this. It's always helpful.
Me too, yeah.
For us to talk. Just like, not just on the podcast, but in general. Like, I like actually catching up with you on a regular basis. So
yeah. And I think lately we've been getting a lot of good feedback on the podcast too, which is really just motivating me more personally to keep putting good content out.
Yeah, so that's good. I'm glad you guys are liking our content. Thank you so much for supporting us. Please rate and give us, the stars that we deserve on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you listen to our podcast. That would be so great. If you have any comments or suggestions, let us know over there as well. But yeah, how was your week?
Well, it was less eventful than I thought it would be, but in a good way, because I've been pretty busy with work the last couple weeks. So it was kind of nice to have a more or less unproblematic week, like, because my previous week was just full of craziness and lots of long work hours, and this week was kind of like a 180 on that. And I think that was kind of a help with the President's Day holiday, and I took some time off of work, just a personal day to kind of get myself together. So I think all that was good, and I'm appreciating having a little break from the drama for a little bit. How about you?
That's good. Yeah, it was also Amber's birthday. Happy birthday!
I didn't want to mention it, but since you did, thanks. I'm old.
Nice little applause.
Yeah, I'm
so
27
exciting.
now.
Amber's old.
I am 27 now. Yeah, and
28.
No,
27.
Wow,
I didn't even know how old
I am.
Because I was like, we're the same age. You're right.
I'm 27. I'm giving myself 3 more years to figure my shit out before I turn 30, or I guess before I turn 31. And so luckily with COVID still running up, I think luckily but unluckily, I think I just have some more time to be introspective and get my stuff figured out before things open up, like for travel and safe just doing things safely in public again. I think I have some time to figure my stuff out. I'm rambling.
No, you're good.
Yeah, but yes, thank you for the birthday wish. I had a good birthday. My partner was spoiling me as best he could, because I don't typically like to do too much on my birthday. I've just never really I guess growing up I never really had too much of a focus on birthdays. Like, my parents were just very like, oh, okay, here's a cake, what do you want for dinner, we'll buy whatever you want, and here's a present or two. And I never had like birthday parties or anything like that, so I don't usually think that I need a lot of stuff on my birthday. But regardless, my partner did a good job. He brought me some donuts and my little favorite coffee drink from our favorite favorite donut shop, and he bought me a little cute little ice cream cake. It was so sweet. It was so good. And then he basically told me to like pick a present. So I think I want to get some new stuff for the kitchen, like cooking stuff. There's this like cast iron griddle that I want. You could just put it on your stovetop, and it's basically like a big griddle that you can have on your burners. So I think I might get something like that, just to try something different in the kitchen, make me a little more excited to cook. But yeah, it was good.
Oh, that's
so how was your week? Sorry.
No, that's good. I'm glad you had a good birthday and like a pretty good week. I know this is getting like very brouhaha, but 27 to 30 is like when your Saturn returns. And so that's when, you're like a bit more perspective, and things
True.
start to change, and
Yeah.
more things might become clear about like your path and where you're going and
Mm.
stuff like that. So it's very possible that, so it makes sense, like if you're feeling that way, then especially like now.
That's
Yeah.
so interesting because we were just talking about this before we started recording. We were talking about like, things that have been on our mind. And I was saying like I have this weird feeling of calm, which I don't normally have. Like when I think about all the stuff I want to accomplish, things I should be doing, tasks that I've been procrastinating and stuff, like I tend to get like very anxious very quickly. But I think for the last few days I've had this like weird calmness about everything where I'm like, it's gonna work itself out. Yeah, you just gotta do this, and this. It's fine. You got plenty of time or whatever. Like I feel like a lot more grounded these days, which might be because my Saturn is returning.
Yes. Yeah. So that's good. Yeah. This week for me was very reflective, very a lot of things linking to each other,
Yeah.
I had a teacher die this week that I knew in high school. Like he was the reason why I decided I wanted to get into engineering and STEM and stuff like that. And the program that I was in that he taught, like I was in that program for 4 years, and it was it did a lot for me. It was like a second home, and I mean, I haven't talked to him since I left the program, but it just like really sucked to like hear that he had died. And
Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know. He was pretty old when I met him, so I don't know if he died just of natural causes or COVID or anything like that. But I hope his family's okay, and I hope he's in a better place, and resting and stuff like that. Even when I met him, he had like 2-3 jobs, and I'm pretty sure he was like in his 70s. Yeah. Like, so yeah. And yeah, he definitely inspired me to do a lot of the things that I do. So yeah, I will say, like, because I like reflected on that, it just made me want to believe in myself more and vindicate all the shit that I went through in high school, and like all of like, and made me realize that I'm doing really well now. Like,
yeah, you are.
So yeah. Other than that, this week was this week. It was cold. We had ice. It was not fun. I mean, we had the storm that came from Texas, and like that area came up to Virginia, but it was nothing compared to what Texas got. So like my car was like covered with like a layer of ice that was like half an inch thick, like but like yeah, so that was that. But other than that, it's like every other week I'm on this episode.
Same old.
Same old
I feel
stuff. Yeah, so yeah. All right, so this week we're just gonna, I think because I was feeling very like reflective and stuff like that, I wrote down some questions that I wanted us to answer. I feel like this might be the first time we actually like on purpose get deep. I feel like
we definitely do it by accident most of the time.
Like in other episodes we're like, this is supposed to be silly, but then we start like going off on tangents about other things, and we get super deep about stuff. And so we're actually going to get pretty deep today, and just kind of like self-reflective. And I feel like we both want to better ourselves mentally and emotionally, and sometimes you have to ask yourself questions that you're probably not used to asking yourself. So I feel like this would be a really good way to do that. I would implore all of you to also answer these questions we answer them. So if you want to like, if after I ask the question, you want to like pause
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
recording and like kind of like figure out what you think or what your ideas about, and then like listen to what we have to say. That would be really cool. And like let us know like what you guys think of these questions and kind of like your answers and thoughts on what we say or anything like that. So yeah.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to talk to yourself, because I definitely talk out loud to myself if I'm answering
Same.
questions like this. Like, what would I think about that? Well, it's
Yeah.
okay. You're not crazy. I think it's healthy to give some time for yourself to like have a discussion with yourself,
Yeah.
because
Agreed.
sometimes you might uncover some things or say some things that you've just been thinking about but didn't really realize how important it was to you until you say it.
Fair. Yeah, I agree. Okay. First question is, what about you has felt repeatedly misunderstood by others, if anything?
Oh. Oh. Okay. Hmm. I think. Okay. Yeah. So one thing I noticed when I was in high school, I actually had a friend talk to me one day. We had been like good friends for a few years, and I think we were like driving to school one time or something. We must have been like 10th or 11th grade, something like that. We were driving to school, and she was asking if I remembered how I was when we met, and we had met like a few years previously in middle school. And I had moved to this new town. I started school in like the middle of the first semester, so it was like people had already had their established friends and stuff from previous years, and the beginning of the year. But my family moved a lot, obviously, as I've mentioned before in the podcast. But my family moved a lot, so it was just like same old shit for me. And I was pretty salty because I had to again leave behind some friends that I had made previously. But when I first met this person in particular, she said I was super intimidating, and so she felt like she had to be my friend because she was scared of me. And when she said that, I kind of thought, and I was like, wait, like that's not right, because I just was I was mad. I wasn't mad at anyone in particular. I was just mad because I had to start over, and making new friends and getting adjusted in a new place is really difficult. So
Yeah.
I think, in general, what I'm trying to get at is, I think people assume that I'm this totally unapproachable and like hardened and angry person just because I have this really bad resting bitch face, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I really I like to think I'm pretty approachable, and I'm like pretty nice person. Like, obviously I'm not the nicest person ever. But I think that's something that people um assume is that I'm this hostile person that doesn't want to have new friends or doesn't want to talk to anybody or engage with somebody. But I love talking to new people, and I love
Mm-hmm.
when people like approach me in public and start a conversation, because it that just makes me feel like the the negative thoughts that people have are kind of slipping away in that moment. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I guess that's my answer there on that.
Yeah. You know what? I get that a lot too. I get that I have resting bitch face and I'm unapproachable and like all
Mm.
those things as well. Like I've heard that before as well. And I, a lot of it has to do with the fact that I'm a black woman, and there's this idea that like we're unapproachable and we have an attitude, nobody wants to talk to us, blah blah blah, whatever. And honestly, like if we're not like constantly smiling all the time or like trying to appear less threatening to other
Yeah, yeah.
people think that we're like the total opposite of who we actually are. Cause yeah, so yeah, I that sucks that you have to go through that and like it felt that way. But yeah, I 100% understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I'll add something quickly on that. And I think this is something I might have mentioned to you before, but before we moved back to the Midwest, when we were in California, I noticed that I think that it kind of brought back that feeling of like, oh wow, people really think that about me, because I noticed, and this was like one of the reasons why I didn't like where we lived, but I noticed when I'd be walking on the sidewalk by myself, and like let's say I'm walking to the train to go to work or something, I'm in work clothes, I'm neat and clean and whatever, and I'm walking, and it's like 8:30 in the morning, something like that, right? If I noticed when I sometimes when I'd be walking, people would shift their bag on their shoulder, or they would, and this was pre-COVID, they would, move farther away from me, or they would cross the street, and just so that they wouldn't engage with me.
Mm-hmm.
And that really bothered me, because initially I was like, oh well, maybe they just think I'm mean and blah blah blah. But really, I also started to think maybe it's just because I'm black and they don't want to talk to a black person in this
Yeah.
neighborhood where they feel on edge because there's so much crime or something like that. And
Yeah.
and so it's like things like that where you might think it's one way, but maybe underneath the surface it's a whole other slurry of reasons. Slurry, is that a word? Whole
Yeah.
other list of reasons, right? Like that really started to bother me because I noticed it more and more. But then on the flip side, and I know we didn't want to get too deep on this first topic, but
Mm.
on the flip side, if I was walking with my white partner, I we would people would be waving us and say, "Hey, how you doing? Oh my gosh!" and just talking to us about random shit on the street, stopping us to talk to us, and you know, um, we go on a walk for exercise in the evening, and everybody's like waving and smiling and looking friendly and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the juxtaposition of me walking by myself and being seen as like a threat or a target to people, maybe just because of, if not the look on my face and my skin color, versus you know being seen with someone who maybe isn't interpreted as a threat. It's just so crazy, and it just makes you really think, like that, don't judge a book by its cover thing, is it's just so important. Like, don't assume people are one way until you know for sure. And even if you don't know for sure, like, just like give everyone the benefit of the doubt,
Yeah.
until there's a serious reason to not. That's
Yeah.
really what I'm saying, I guess.
No, I 100% understand. Yeah. I get it. Yeah. Yeah. For me, I think, yeah, something that is repeatedly misunderstood by others from, just like what I've seen, um, is that I don't, also very much along the same vein of like you, is that, I don't have emotions, or I'm emotionless, or
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. And it's not true because I'm human, so clearly I have emotions. Like, I'm not a robot or like a computer or anything like that. So there's that. But yeah, and it's something that I really, for a long time, I believed that as well. Like, I believed that, like, I was just like very much unable to have emotions, or I've had people come up who, like, I have people say to me, like, oh, like, I wish that I didn't have emotions like you, or and stuff like that.
Wow.
Depending on the situation, maybe it's like, maybe it's like work related, and they're trying to be quote unquote strong or something like that. And
Hmm.
it's just like, I don't wish this on anyone. I don't wish being quote unquote emotionless on anyone, because it sucks. Like, there are times when I really want to cry and I literally cannot, because I have trained myself not to cry, because because of trauma, to be totally honest. There were times in my childhood where I just wasn't allowed to cry. And if I cried, I'd be in more trouble. And so I trained myself not to cry, and not to show emotion, and things like that. And yeah, and I don't, and it sucks because it's deeper than just, oh, I don't have, like, I didn't pop out of the womb not having emotions. Like, I wasn't always this way. Clearly, like, something happened, and it, I guess, quote unquote, hardened me in that way. And it's something that, like, I'm trying to break out of, and trying to be
Mm-hmm.
more vulnerable and emotional. And I mean, I'm not going to be like crying on command or anything, but I feel like that's something that's constantly misunderstood by me, or that I don't care or whatever. It's like, no, I do care. Like, I have feelings. I'm not an emotionless
Right.
object. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we were just talking about, where, you know, don't take her, you know, lack of, let's say, showing her emotions on her sleeve or whatever as apathy, as her not caring about things,
Mm-hmm.
as, you know, her, you know, not considering or having empathy for other people. It's just, that's just something that she's working through.
Yeah. Okay. Our next question. What parts of yourself do you need to break up with?
Shit. Oh, wow. You want to go first on this one?
Yeah, yeah, I
Okay.
will. I uh, I don't know. Mm, I think I need to break up with the part of me that constantly wants to fix everything all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I and or more so like I have like this ability to be loyal, and sometimes it's to a fault. Like I'm constantly being, that friend that everyone can lean on. And a lot of times, not a lot of times, but there are times where people lean on me too hard, and it tends to break me, and it's not fun. So, yeah, I think that's a part of myself that I want to break up with. I want to divest from being that person that has to constantly fix someone, and that constantly has to, I guess, constantly have to like invest my entire being into something or someone. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's okay to be passive about it as well. It doesn't mean that I don't care, and it doesn't mean that I'm not going to be there for you or something like that. But I also have to like listen to my body and listen to myself and be like, hey, like, you gotta you gotta figure that out for yourself, and like figure out, I lost my train of thought. But like you have to, just figure out like how can you do both? How can you be there for someone but also like understand like the fact that you need to take care of your own stuff and your own self as well. So yeah, that's
Yeah, it kind of that kind of reminds me of those you know, when you're on a plane and they give those instructions about the mask, where they say put the mask on your face first
self.
before you help other
Yeah.
people. Like,
Mm-hmm.
even if your young child is sitting right next to you, you have to get yourself settled first so that you can help other people. It's I think it kind of is the same way. In a way it's the same way, but yeah, I think that's a good one. For me, I would say I need to, and again, this is stuff that we were just talking about. Like, I think I need to break up with the part of myself that likes to blame other people for my situation, and the part of me that needs to, or, you know, that tends to harp on the past and use that as a crutch and say, oh, I can't do this right now because in the past I was like this and this, or in the past I had this happen to me. I of course, I totally understand you. If you have trauma, you have to work through that trauma. Or if you have something that, you know, maybe is a trigger, um, you have, there's a certain way to approach it. But I think for me, what I'm thinking of personally is, you know, like I've given myself all these reasons over the years to not do something, because in the past when I did it, it didn't work out, or in the past someone told me I shouldn't be doing it. And it's, you know, you have to kind of control your own destiny. You can't really, this was something Celeste and I were talking about before we started recording, but we were kind of saying like everyone has a different path than you, right? So you can't compare your situation where you are right now to how someone else is doing, just because someone else is married and you're not, you can't say, oh, well, if I had done it this way or the same way as that person, I'd be married by now. Or if I had stuck with that person that, I stuck in that relationship with that person that wasn't really for me, I could be married right now. But what would you be? You might be married and miserable, right? So like you can't, at the same time where you can't blame entirely, you can't entirely blame other people for your current situation. You also can't compare what other people are doing to your situation and try to say, well, because I'm not here and they are, they're doing better than me. You just can't do it. You just have to remember that everyone's path is different. Everyone's struggles present themselves differently. And just because you didn't see what they were going through doesn't mean that they didn't have some of the same struggles that you have.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess that's kind of my roundabout answer.
No. I love that. I agree as well. I was just writing down something that you said triggered like something, just reminded me of something. When I was growing up, someone used to, the worst advice that I've ever gotten in my entire life, one of the worst pieces of advice that I've gotten ever in my entire life is and someone used to say this to me when I was younger, was that who you are now is who you're going to be. And I 100%
Yikes.
disagree with that.
Yeah, wow.
And like you, I constantly believe that that's what that was. Like who I was then was just going to be who I am today. And that's 100% not true. And I realized that, I don't want to say too late, but I realized that once I realized, oh, that is not true and that is false and that literally doesn't make any sense. That's when I like started like really becoming like who I wanted to be. And I realized that people can change, and no one is ever like just one version of themselves their entire life. So yeah, I 100%, I like what you said, and I agree with it so much. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that was a good question.
Yeah. What promise do you want to keep to yourself this year? Like, what's a promise that you've made to yourself and you're like, I gotta keep this?
Okay, yeah. For me, quickly, I'll just say, I think we touched on this in one of our first episodes this year. But I had this mantra in my head that I've been trying to. I made a promise to myself at the turn of the year, where I said I was going to actually listen to my own advice for once, which is something I don't typically do. I love giving advice, but when it comes to me, I don't always follow it. But the thing that I'm trying to keep in mind is to always make every situation a benefit for you, even if it's a shitty situation, even if it's something that is totally not in your favor. Like, find a way to make it in your favor, where it's like, maybe I don't know, you lost a bunch of money trading stocks or something. Me. But like as an example, maybe you lost a bunch of money trading stocks. Yeah, obviously that's a terrible situation, but on the plus side or the benefit, now you've taught yourself a very important lesson. I know people hate trying to say, oh, you can't make everything a lesson. You can't make every mistake a lesson. You absolutely can. You can say, okay, well, next time I'm only going to trade with $500 instead of $1,000 at a time, where I'm only going to, I'm going to set aside money off to the side from each paycheck for a month, and then use that money, and I'm not going to tap into my checking account, or I'm going to do this. You can always find a way to make something benefit you in a roundabout way. And I think with that, thinking about more, I think, day-to-day things, where it's like, if you get frustrated because, something didn't turn out the way you wanted, like maybe you asked your coworker to help you with something and they kind of blew you off. They didn't want to give you any time to help you with that. That should motivate you to figure it out yourself. So that the next time you have something similar come around, you can say, well, I already know how to fix it because I had to figure it out myself last time because so-and-so didn't want to help me. And that benefits you. That makes you even more independent. That makes you, maybe even more valuable to your company or whoever, because they know you know how to troubleshoot on your own and figure stuff out. And that's kind of like your way to spin it to a positive, right? So I think overall, I think that's my main thing that I'm trying to um stick to this year. Is like, because I told myself, I said, this makes sense to me, I really want to do it. I want to promise myself that I will always try to take every situation back to that main thing. It's like, how do I spin this into a benefit for me, or how do I make it about me, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. I was thinking, like it's pretty much like trying to take chances on things and also learning from those experiences,
right, right,
albeit good or bad, because you can, like you're saying, you can always learn from any and everything. Maybe you learn that you don't want to do that again, or
right,
maybe
right,
you
and that,
learn like how to
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
approach something differently. But
Yeah. And it
that
saves you time in
part,
the future, because you're like, I already told myself I didn't like this. Why am I about to do this again? You don't do
mm-hmm,
it, right?
yeah, yeah. So I love that. Yeah. Um, for me, I don't know. You know what? I will say I don't make a lot of promises to myself. I guess in part, maybe I just don't want to be disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
I guess a promise, man, I don't even know one, and I totally picked this question. I guess a promise to myself that I do want to keep is trying to get back into therapy. I constantly advocate for therapy, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
constantly telling everyone and all of my friends to go to therapy because I think it's important. And it's just nice to talk to someone who has to listen to you. Like, your friends don't have to pick up your phone. Like, they don't have to respond to your text messages, but a therapist has to like actually listen to you and listen to you
That
talk
is true.
about your stuff. So, yeah, going back to therapy. I'm constantly advocating for therapy, and I'm telling everyone to go. And I've been in therapy a lot, like um throughout my life, but I definitely need to go back, and I haven't quite. I was going to go back this year, like
Mm-hmm.
truly. And then I kind of don't have any money for therapy right now because I'm paying two rents, but once that's over, I'm definitely going to be going back to therapy, and I want to keep that to promise to myself because I want to continuously grow and self develop,
Yeah.
and I want to deal with a lot of the things that I can't fully deal with on my own. And obviously, like, and I recognize that I need help doing that. And so yeah, cuz I don't want anything holding me back from reaching my full potential, because there
Right.
is still a part of me that is scared of like doing a lot of the things that I want to do, because I'm like, oh, it's not going to work out, or da 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 or whatever. But a lot of it is because, I think some of it is because I haven't worked out a lot of things that happened. Excuse me. And so with the help of a therapist um and things like that, I can really start to get to my full potential. So I want to keep that promise to myself so that I can keep blossoming and keep going
Yeah, that
forward.
makes
Yeah.
sense. I think that, you already know how beneficial therapy is for you. So,
Yeah.
why not try to keep up
Yeah.
with that if you already know the benefits?
Mhm. Yeah.
Good.
Okay. My last question is, are you avoiding any hard conversations with yourself?
All the
That's
time.
Yeah, same. Same.
You go first.
Yeah. I will say that I'm getting better at having like actual like realistic conversations with myself. Cuz I've been a long time ago, I started on this journey of um like I guess body positivity, then it turned into like more body neutrality and
Mm-hmm.
just learning to like love and accept my body. And with that came it kind of that I those ideals kind of like trickled down into like every part of my life. And lately a part of that has been be having like actual really hard conversations and having like honest conversations about things with myself. And I think I guess I will say, so I don't think I'm really avoiding any of those hard conversations because I ultimately I'm not, well, I can't think of one like in the moment. But I will say recently I've been having a conversation with myself about oh crap, I forget what it was. Let me think for a second. What was it about? Oh, it was about how much I've like how much I hated myself for a very long time, and for obviously like various different reasons. But I really hated myself for,
Mm.
I would say, most of my life, to be totally honest. And a lot of it stems from trauma, and I know I talk about that a lot. But also like society at large. When my body changed in college, I really started like really self-loathing and really hating myself. And because of that, like I felt like I could not be loved because
Mm.
society tells us that because when you look a certain way, when you're fat, you cannot be loved. And I was like, well, I can't be loved in this body. And obviously that's not true. But then I felt like I couldn't date or anything like that because until I was in a body that was more acceptable. And that really sucked because I didn't love myself, and then I also didn't have the opportunity to let other people love me. And so that's a hard conversation I had to have with myself about like, you really didn't like yourself. You really hated yourself for a very long time, and it made me feel uncomfortable in my body and all these things. And it made me really hard, and it sucked and all these things. But I now I'm better at that, and I'm trying to be better at loving myself more, loving like even like the parts of myself that I don't always 100% like, or that I'm
Yeah.
trying to work through, like,
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. Self-love, I will say self-love is hard. Like it really is, because
Oh, definitely.
yeah, we're not taught to love ourselves like wholeheartedly or
Yeah.
realistically. So yeah, that's my
Yeah.
answer.
I've kind of in a similar vein. I think for me, there's a couple things, and one is the same sort of thing, like my body image, like having, um, a conversation with myself where you say it's okay to be the size you are. It's okay to, have certain things going on, but it's not okay to not be healthy, right? Or not take care of yourself because you just want to save it for another day or something, right? Like I think that's something that gets stuck in my head a lot, is where I put things off and say, I can just do that tomorrow. I can just do that next week. And I don't think it's okay to do that every time, because then, you look back 6 months later and you realize you haven't accomplished the thing that you wanted to do 6 months ago. That one thing where it's like, I'm going to start walking around the block every day during my lunch break. And, you keep putting that off. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, it's been 6 months. If I had been doing this like I wanted to, maybe not every day, but, if I had gotten started 6 months ago, where could I be right now? I think that that kind of thought leads me, um, because I think one of my I'm not sure how to say this. I guess one of the things that bugs me the most about myself is I tend to reflect too much on my past. And, we were just talking about this, but like, I tend to harp too much on stuff that happened in the past, or, somebody hurt my feelings, and that caused me to do this or not do this or whatever. And, so anyways, I think that's one conversation I need to have is um, just trying to finally decide and define like what it would mean to me to be healthy or feel healthy. And the other one would be what it would mean to me to be financially secure and making like the proper positive moves in um my finances, like with paying off debt and stuff, because I'm still working through a lot of debt. With being more responsible on a day-to-day basis with things like impulse buying and you know buying shit that I don't need, or just ordering stuff without thinking it through, and then I've spent $100 and I regret it immediately, things like that. Like those are the two big things for me right now. I think that I'd say I've procrastinated on having a hard look at that type of stuff, but I think I'm actively working towards getting to a point where I can actually um start to implement the right things and be able to stick with it. Like it can't all happen at once, of course, but um you have to start somewhere, and I think before you can start, you have to have that like honest conversation with yourself at some point.
Yeah, I agree. Um, I I will say though, for the health aspect, I know like that kind of stuff is like touchy for people, but I will say that as someone like we're talking about, as someone also had who has body image issues, you know, define what health looks like to you. Like what does health mean to you?
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
it's not a people would like to say like, oh, it's a finite thing, but realistically it's not, because everyone's body is different. You know, people have allergies, people have different chronic diseases. So what you can do is very different from what is healthy to you is very different from what I can do and what's healthy to me. Like,
Right. Yeah.
so yeah, so figure out like what health means to you, and I think you can definitely, and what your ideal of health is. What is your relationship to health, and um what do you want it to be or it to look like? A
Hmm.
lot of, for me at least, I will say for me at least, my version of what is healthy to me is my doctor coming back to me and looking at my blood work and being like, you have like diabetes or
Mm.
something like that. Like, and if I don't, and I look the way that I look, I'm still fat and stuff, then I'm like, okay, well, clearly I'm healthy. My doctor doesn't have a problem with any of the things that I'm doing, then that's okay. Like, I'm fine. Like, a lot, like there are times when I'm sedentary for a very long time, and there are times when I'm a lot more active. So,
Yeah.
I think, yeah, just trying to, but that's for me at least. So, trying to figure out what that is. And I feel like that might help you or anyone else get into that mindset of, okay, now let's repair that body image and that self-hate and self-loathing and stuff like that. Because I mean, granted, that's what I did. That might
Hmm.
not work for everyone, but I think it's a good approach overall. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
that's well said. That's
Yeah.
well said.
All right,
Yeah.
that's all the questions I have though.
I have a
So
question
yes.
that I just forgot as I was saying I have a question. God, jeez, hold on. Okay, so my question, um, it's kind of in a similar realm to what we were talking about today, but So in a scenario, so let's assume you're having a really shitty day. You're like, oh my god, like this day can't get any worse. Like, but you finally have some time to yourself to, I guess, fix your bad day or like improve your mood, right? What
Mm-hmm.
is name three things that you do that those are your like go-tos. It's like if I need to get out of a bad mood, I do this, and I do this. What would you say you do? Or
Um,
buy or eat or it could be anything
yeah.
or watch,
Okay, so if I'm in a funk and I'm just like, fuck it, I'm not doing anything else anymore. Or I'm just like trying to pull myself out of a bad mood or whatever. Yeah, the three things that I do is I order food from my favorite place,
Mm-hmm.
um, which is chicken curry with rice
Mm.
and garlic naan. So good, so
Oh
good,
yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
And I will also either I will eat ice cream that's already in the fridge, or I would order Cold Stone. And the third thing is I would most likely watch like a TV show or a movie, specifically a Marvel movie, if anything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or a TV show that like I'm just like heavily interested in. Like right now I'm watching Once Upon a Time, quality TV programming.
I heard it's pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm actually rewatching it. I was watching like the first, I think I watched up to like season 3, the end of season 3, and then I stopped watching for some reason. So now I'm like rewatching it like years later. But yeah, those are my three go tos. Like, and then I just honestly, it's all of that is pretty much me just taking the rest of the day off or something like that, because I got to give myself time, and that's how I like cope or really like try to relax and like get into a place in which I start to feel better. And this is not
Yep.
all the time obviously, but like when
Yeah.
it's like when a lot of times like I try to like breathe through it and do things that aren't that. But when when the going gets rough, I those are my go-tos. So yeah.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think ours are pretty similar. The main thing I think for me that you know, I guess the my main go to is I go to YouTube and I find a travel video that I've been wanting to watch, or lately I've been really into these walking tours of cities. Like right now, I'm kind of like fixated on between like London and Berlin. And so I'll find somebody who straps a high quality camera to their chest and they just walk from one destination to another. And it's just nice to like feel like it's very immersive to me, like because
Mm-hmm.
I get my sound turned up just right, or I put my headphones on, and have it the sound like quality really nice. And then you're looking at stuff like shops and just people like living life, and I think in a way it just relaxes me to see people just living their life. Like maybe someone's running errands, or maybe someone's trying to hurry to get to the airport, so they're running for the train or something. But it's like just like that. It seems almost like a refreshing to me in a way. So I think that really helps me, especially if I'm in like an introspective kind of day and I'm just like really beat up with my thoughts. Um, I think that really helps. And along with that, I'd say, get my favorite food, or try to make my favorite food like a comfort food. For me, I'd say like one of my favorite foods is like a chicken sandwich, like a good chicken sandwich and some fries. So if I have the ingredients at home, I'll make my own, and I'll just put like 1,000 pickles on top and like as much ketchup as I want, like just like
Yeah.
guilt free kind of thing. Or I'll order from a spot I know that does good chicken sandwiches, something like that. And then I'd say the other thing I do is I will probably go to bed early because for me, I think Just being able to sleep it off sometimes does a lot for me.
Yeah.
Or just taking a nap for a couple hours, and not saying, oh, I'm just gonna take a power nap. Like, I'm like, no, 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 no. As soon as I'm done with all my responsibilities for the day, I need to be out for at least a good few hours before I feel like refreshed and kind of back to myself. So yeah, I think that's kind of my list there in short.
Yeah. Oh, that was good. I really like that. Yeah. I hope that like gives some people some ideas of like finding a routine that helps you like deal with like really like when you're really feeling like it's just way too tough and you can't like just like for me like I like to talk myself through things or I like to critically think about things, but sometimes like it's just too much and I'm just like I don't want to critically think about shit. I don't want to talk through shit. I just want to be mad. and 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 so I don't get like too upset or anything like that. I'm like, okay, I gotta like go to like a whole nother universe and like be immersed in that and like really get my mind off of it and those are the things that I do and the things that you do as well. So yeah, I really
and
like
I think
that.
oh sorry, yeah, I think you touched on a point that I think we made in a roundabout way where it's like sometimes I don't when I'm in these days where it's like worse of the worst for me, like I'm really in my head bad, I don't really need to talk to somebody about it. I just need to escape a little bit mentally. And I think that's the difference between a normal bad day where you're like, I'm just frustrated over something, I need to vent for a little bit, so I call my best friend or something, versus I'm like, I need to shut everything off. Oh, the other thing I'd say I would mention is I will turn my phone on do not disturb. So I only get notified if somebody is either calling me or if I physically pick up my phone and check my messages. But yeah, I think in those days it's just really more about relaxing your mind. Because you know exactly why you're upset. Like for me, I tend to get upset when I feel like just kind of like overwhelmed or frustrated from the workday, or I feel like something is just not going the way I wanted it to, or like I'm not like we were talking about again earlier. We're not advancing in our career or something as quickly as possible. Like I'd say like once a month I have that day where I'm like, God, this is just too much. And yeah, so those sort of things, it's like I can't really talk to people about it because I already know more or less like what's going on. But yeah, it's just really about escaping in that moment.
Yeah, sometimes you just don't need advice or to vent. You just need to be still.
Yeah, totally.
I agree. Oh, this was good. I'm glad this was fun. Like,
yeah,
I feel like
that was a good one. It wasn't as deep as I thought it would be. Like, I'm like glad though, because I was not trying to tear up and cry on this podcast. Y'all don't want to hear me. I got the ugly cry, so y'all don't want to hear that. So,
yeah.
Oh my gosh, I got that Kim Kardashian cry. So, it's like my face gets all jacked up, and I'm just like, wah!
Aw. I'm pretty sure it's not that bad. But yeah. Okay.
It's that bad. It's that bad.
Okay, we're gonna move into our last segment called What's Got You Hot?
What's got you hot?
Hey, I know what's got me hot right now. It's Texas. All right.
Oh jeez.
And it should be what's got me cold, but jokes aside, no, seriously. My mom and my siblings and some of my family, like my aunts, uncles, cousins, they live down in Texas, and I have a couple of good friends that also live down there. It's bad. It's as bad as you think it is. It's as bad as you've been seeing. Luckily, the weather is improving every day, so there's less and less of a chance of a repeat of this right now. But man, they got rocked, and there's a lot of people to blame. But I think more than anything, I'm pissed because this reminds me almost to a T of what happened with Hurricane Katrina. And if you don't really know too much about Hurricane Katrina, this was something like, you have those obsessions as a kid where you obsess over something like very like random to most people, but to you it's like your life for a little bit.
Yeah.
That was me with Hurricane Katrina. I knew
Wow,
all the
yeah.
stats. I knew all the areas affected. I could name neighborhoods and how devastated they were by flooding and stuff in New Orleans and Mississippi and stuff like that. But anyways, this to me was set up exactly like Katrina. The problem with Katrina, Hurricane Katrina, was yes, it was a Category 5 storm for a certain amount of time, but the problem with New Orleans specifically and how they were affected was they have these levees, these flood walls that were set up around the city to protect the city from Lake Pontchartrain because most of the city is actually below sea level. And so, there's literally a wall holding back the water from this giant lake that the city sits up next to. And so what happened was over the years, over the decades, they would have floods. The Army Corps of Engineers would not, and more specifically, really, the federal government would not do anything to replace these bad levees, these levees that just weren't designed to hold up to, catastrophic amounts of water coming over the flood walls. So, of course, what happened, Katrina was like literally the perfect storm and knocked those levees, those flood walls down and flooded most of the city. Obviously caused a lot of damage. There's still whole neighborhoods in that city that haven't been rebuilt, and if they've been rebuilt, they've just been rebuilt by bits and pieces and only from people like celebrities and philanthropists with lots of money that have done the rebuilding themselves. The government hasn't really ever fully handled things, but anyways, in comparison to with what's happening in Texas, it's the same sort of thing. It was a perfect storm, literally. So Texas has their own power grid, so they function separately from most of the other contiguous 48 states, or 47 states. So
they're like 3 or 4 like power grids in the U.S. Like Texas has specifically their own, and then everyone else, I think like west of Texas like shares like a similar grid, and everyone east of Texas shares a similar grid.
Yeah, it's something like that.
And then Texas just has like specifically their own.
Yeah, and so within their own power grid, or within each power grid, there's power stations, substations, and so on. So you're not just getting, you sitting in Missouri, you're not just getting your power from this one big, behemoth thing. You're getting your power fed to you from all of these substations and stations and things like that. So it works in kind of like a big web. But Texas has their own infrastructure for all of that. So, but the problem is they have been getting all these warnings from professionals and from scientists and from experts saying, hey, your power grid is great and all, and it's doing its job now, but if there ever was this sort of scenario, this power grid would not survive, right? And so what we saw was this perfect storm came in, whereas this cold blast with all the snow and ice and stuff came up into Texas, and it totally just obliterated their resources. And the problem was not that the power grid itself failed, is that they weren't prepared for people needing to use more power to heat their homes, because again, Texas is a relatively new state, or relatively newly inhabited on a massive scale, so there's a lot of people who have newer construction houses that are mostly electrical powered, and they don't have wood burning fireplaces, and they don't have gas, and stuff. Most people, if you think of a typical Texas home, it's mostly all electric. Like I'd say 90% electric. Most of their power source is electricity. So when you have all these people saying, "Hey, I got to crank my AC or my my heat up because my house is getting cold because it's 10 freaking degrees outside," which is unheard of for Texas. You got all these people thinking the same way. Of course it's going to overload the power grid. And of course it's going to cause these problems where they're saying, okay, well now we're running out of power literally, so we need to conserve power. So it's the same sort of thing where it's like all this time they didn't fucking listen, and now this is happening, and your people and your constituents and everything like that are suffering every day.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's got me hot.
Yeah. And
it's just so frustrating.
What I saw was like, hey, this is not the first time this has happened. It happened back in 2011 as well, and they told them the same thing, and they didn't fix the problem because it cost too much money to care about people who
Right.
don't have any money.
Exactly.
And it is so much easier for you to just pay out the money or for whatever little people who sue you because
Exactly.
than to actually fix
Totally
the
agree.
problem. Like this
Right.
whole thing is very like capitalism will literally be the death of this country. Like and the death of a lot of people who morally believe in capitalism and capitalism is their moral compass. So yeah,
Right.
it is. And who suffers the most? Black and brown bodies. People are literally freezing. People have been freezing to death in Texas. Like it's extremely bad. It's so bad. And then people want to talk about, well, this is why. Oh, and then all the asshats who are like, oh, well, they froze the wind turbines. They got frozen and blah 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 and all this stuff. I was like, that's 10% of where the power comes from. Dodo bird, what are you talking about? You stupid bitch. Like that don't make no damn sense at all whatsoever. And also, there are countries that get way colder than Texas, like Iceland and Greenland, that have wind turbines that work during these kinds of storms because the infrastructure is there and they did it right the first fucking time. You stupid asshats. So that shit like is so annoying to me. I am grateful that everyone that I know in Texas is okay. And you know what's worse? It's happening in the middle of a fucking pandemic.
Yes.
Which means that people have had to go outside to find resources and interact with other people. Someone that I know, well, I don't know them, but someone I follow on social media, they live in Dallas and they think they caught COVID because they had to leave their home because they had no power or no water. They went to a hotel to get a room and now they think and there was tons of people at hotels and hotels were losing power as well, and so they think they caught COVID now because they had to go outside because of this bullshit. Like y'all, like every day they tell us that they don't care about us and so many people still don't believe that. Like they still
and they tell us in so
believe.
many ways. They tell us in so many ways.
They tell us, it's like the quote, like, when someone tells you who they are, believe them the first time. They are constantly telling you that they do not give a fuck about you. And y'all constantly keep voting for these same shitty-ass people because all they do is talk. They don't do anything except make themselves richer.
I saw some shit that was real true, too, about Ted Cruz. Like, obviously, most people know now. Ted Cruz got caught up in shit, he got caught in 4K or 8K or whatever you want to call it now. He
like
and the group chat with his wife and her lovelies got leaked as well, where she was saying, "Oh, we're tired of dealing with this. We're tired of being cold. We're gonna go to Cancun. We can be down there tonight and blah blah blah. We'll come back at the end of the weekend." That isn't it funny? Isn't it fucking funny that this guy who spent so much time and energy advocating for this big ass fucking border wall against Mexico and the U.S.
fled to Mexico,
ran to Cancun, Mexico, the first sign of trouble.
Yeah.
As soon as he was like, it's too cold, I'm uncomfortable. Not right, regardless of the fact that he has all this money and he could afford to stay warm if he really needed to, and they had been staying warm. They picked up their shit and they went down to Cancun and they got caught, and he came back and tried to blame his fucking
daughter. Yeah.
He tried to blame his child and say she really wanted a vacation and she figured since she didn't have class that we could go and have a family vacation. Shut the fuck up. Okay, also, you left your dog in your house with no power and no heat. So you were okay with Fluffy dying, but you...
Out of all the things white people care about, the one thing that they do not fuck with is you messing with pets. So
I know, right? But apart from that, right? So while they're down there trying to have a nice, lovely vacation, obviously the media caught up with them and they ended up coming back and trying to apologize and shit. While all this is happening, an 11-year-old died because he literally froze to death in his trailer home with his family. So you got that shit going on. Like, the dude's priorities are fucked up. But that is just honestly like a culmination of most of these idiots in power right now.
Yeah.
They don't fucking care. They only care when it benefits their pockets.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Ted Cruz only cared when he got caught.
Right. And then he had the nerve, the shit where he switched out his mask. Okay, so most people caught him because his dumbass wore the same fucking face mask that he wears in Congress all the time when he's, having these publicized meetings and stuff. He wears the same thing. It's very clearly like it's a unique, like, custom mask that stands out. And, people put two and two together. That must be Ted Cruz, right? He comes back, gets off the plane. He's got this big ass I love Texas bullshit on his face. Like, come on. Like, a big ass Texas flag mask on.
Pandering.
Like, it's too fucking easy to call these clowns out, but nothing ever happens to them.
No.
They're gonna get called out. Right now he's taking a lot of heat, but I bet you 2 months from now, most people will
forget
have moved
about
on.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or defend him in some weird culty ass
right
way.
And say, well, that wasn't that bad because blah blah blah. What?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah.
It's like the mayor. That mayor, I don't remember what town it was in Texas, but he said, only the strong are gonna survive.
Oh,
and then people started dying. Yeah, and then people started dying.
Yeah.
And he was like, I take it back. I was just kidding. Like, come on.
Yeah.
How long are you gonna keep these fucking people doing this shit to you? And this is exactly why I just don't really want to engage with that stuff anymore. Mm-hmm. You can only do so much as a constituent. Apart from do your job, do your civic duty, vote every chance you get, write your congressmen and women. That's really what you can do as just an average person. And it just gets to a point where you just feel burnt out. And right now I feel burnt out over it.
Yeah.
So.
This is why a lot of people divest from politics. And it makes sense. Right. I don't blame you. I don't blame anyone from being like, fuck it. Because it gets annoying. Yeah. Yeah, 100% agree. Shout out to people in Texas trying to just survive. I will link some stuff in the description notes for links for people to like donate to mutual aid funds and stuff like that if you are interested.
Yeah.
What's got me hot is someone called me yesterday and we talked for 5 minutes, and in those 5 minutes they asked me 2 things that always annoy the shit out of me, which is
watch me about to take notes.
If I'm married and when am I gonna have children?
Oh.
And
I wouldn't ask you that shit.
Hate getting asked that question, as most people with vaginas do. And I am, leave my womb alone. Leave it alone. It concerns no one. No one. It's no one's business what I'm doing with my womb and my relationship status. It does not matter, because I am sick and tired of, especially now that like, we're getting older, like we're almost 30, and it's like, oh, well, the clock is ticking. So let it tick, bitch. Let it tick. Mm-hmm. I don't care. I do not care. And then this person was like, oh, like, well, okay, so the person asked me if I was married, and I said no. And then they went to say, oh, like, aren't you, like, when are you gonna give your dad grandchildren? And I was just like,
wow.
I was like, so my worth as a woman is tied to a man. Still.
Wow.
I was just like, can we stop? I remember when I was like in my early 20s. I can't believe I have to say that. But like when I was like 19, 20, like definitely when I was in college, I would get that question a lot from like some other relatives, like some more of like my immediate family. And back then I told them to stop. I had to have like I had to legit be like, listen, stop asking me these kinds of questions. Because, excuse me, they would constantly ask me like, oh, like, are you dating anyone? Like every single time they would call me, are you dating someone? Are you dating someone? Are you dating someone? And I was just like, I had to stop them. I was like, stop asking me this question. Because A, I hate it. B, it doesn't matter. Why does it matter? It doesn't matter right now. Like that is not my focus. And C, if I am dating someone, I will let you know when I want to tell you. Mm-hmm. So I could be dating someone for a year and you just won't know. And that's okay because it's literally none of your business. Like, leave me alone. I am so sick and tired of people asking me these very evasive questions that also, I have a chronic condition where it might be really hard for me to have kids. Mm-hmm. So that's another thing.
Yeah, it's an insensitive question.
Like, and you don't know any of that, but you think it's okay to just ask someone if they can have kids. What if I was trying to conceive and have kids? And you're asking me these shitty ass questions. Like, leave my fucking womb alone. I will say, to kind of like end on this note, I will say someone at my job currently asked me about my womb during like a hire on interview. Not the first interview. Like, so I was like contract. So I got hired and I was like contract for like 6 months. And then they were like hiring me on as like a permanent worker. And they asked me about my womb during that interview in front of my boss.
What did they say? I don't even... How?
They were like, he was like...
He?
Yes, of course it was a he.
Jesus.
He was like, do you plan to have kids? And I was just like,
what the
fuck? And then he like goes on to this like tangent about how like women who have kids, they like sacrifice their career, and is it even worth that, or some other bullshit like that.
Whoa.
And I was just like, what is going on? And my boss was like so embarrassed, and like she didn't even know what to do because I was like one of her like first employees, and we're like the same age, so she didn't even know what to do. And obviously like we didn't report him because we work in a male dominated field, so like there's that. But like this is it's extremely fucked up. Like it's so fucked up. Like, please stop asking people about their womb or relationship status, especially people with vaginas. Stop it. It's uncalled for. It's insensitive. Yes. It's disgusting. Leave us alone.
Yeah. And on top of that, stop assuming everyone wants to have kids. If they say they don't want to have kids, or they say they're not interested, leave it at that. If you even get that answer from them.
Yeah.
You don't deserve an answer from someone. Like, they should be able to feel comfortable enough to tell you if that's something that they think is even relevant.
Yeah. And
in most cases, I don't think most women our age these days think that's a relevant question.
Yeah, no. It's not even... It was never a relevant question, period.
Oh
like, it just... Unless I'm in a fertility clinic, do not ask me about my womb. Like, just don't.
Right?
Just don't.
Damn.
Like, yeah, so, yeah, I would like people to leave. I don't get this. I don't get it a lot. Like, but every now and again.
But when you do, it rubs you
like
the wrong
really
way for a while.
Pisses me off because why? So yeah, that is my what's got me hot this week. Yeah, shout out to that person.
I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but that's it. That's the episode.
Yeah, so we'll wrap it up here. This was the Slight Sarcasm Podcast. I am Amber, of course.
I'm Celeste.
She's Celeste. We want to thank you for listening, as always, and we also invite you to check out our social media, which is always linked in the show notes. Thank you again, and we hope you